Her face cannot relate to the light. Still left homeless night.
So I'm sure many of you have heard about this consultation that's going to be taking place fairly soon, and it's Amber Rudd that's proposing it, and it's regarding a few different things. First of all, we've got the good reason test with having acid in public. Which, you know, to be fair, I mean, we already have to have that for knives, and it kind of makes sense, because you can't think of anything more horrific than having acid thrown in your face, which is what's going on at the moment with a lot of these gangs and things. And, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Although, of course, not remotely addressing the problem, because, you know, that isn't exactly normal behaviour, is it, culturally, for gangs in the UK to throw acid in people's faces. No, that comes from the Middle East. Why is that suddenly here? Well, join the dots, you know? I mean, we've got mass immigration coming in. We've got, obviously, amongst those people, we've got some various nefarious people wanting to commit crime. And, yeah, that sort of stuff starts happening. Then, obviously, gangs that are here already start copying, and then it becomes an issue. Well, you know, you need to address the gang problem that we've got, first and foremost. But, yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, it's probably a good idea to have the good reason test if you've got acid on you in public, because, you know, there's nothing more horrific than that. I think I'd rather get stabbed than have acid thrown all over me, to be honest. But, like, yeah, that's that. Typical example, though, again, of putting a plaster on a problem rather than addressing why it's happening. Then after that, we've got the online knife sales. Now, I don't even know what they're trying to achieve with that, frankly. I mean, you only need to look in any documentary you'll see about prisons and things, about how easily somebody can make a shank out of like a toothbrush or something, even when they're in prison, let alone just the general public. I mean, knives are ubiquitous. You know, you could just go into your mother's kitchen drawer and pull out a chef knife if you like. I mean, it's just, you know, it's just ridiculous, really. And these things do tend to become a form of arms race, you know, because the minute you sort of start restricting knives, well, or sorry, making it so, you know, you have tougher penalties for carrying a knife, they start doing other things, like throwing acid in people's faces. I mean, you know, what the hell? Why don't we just do what I've suggested in one of my previous videos about the self-defense issue, where you just say, right, from now on, this very specific brand and type of pepper spray is now lawful to carry for everyone. And then not only will the general public be able to defend themselves from criminals generally as well as terrorism, but it means that these nutters going around stabbing people, throwing acid in their faces, are just going to start pepper spraying each other, which frankly I think is preferable, wouldn't you? I mean, you know, it makes sense, or at least doing something like that. But no, Amber just wants to ban online knife sales, which will kill lots of industry in this country, and it will restrict the freedoms of just normal people. You know, I quite like knives. I occasionally will buy a knife. I like them as tools for various different things, and sometimes, yeah, I might want to browse the bushcraft store or sites like that and see what they've got and maybe buy something. Can't do that now. You know, if I've got to go to a shop to pick it up, I might as well just go to the shop and buy it in the first place, hadn't I? In which case, that company is just going to go bust now. You know, and that's, people's livelihoods depend on that. But then, of course, we've got the big issue, the one that everybody's talking about, which is the ban on 50 calibre rifles, and of course, rapid fire rifles of any sort, which is ridiculous because we don't have rapid fire rifles in the UK because semi-automatics have been banned since, what, 1986? So it's a bit ridiculous, but, and we're going to be fair, we don't know what form that will take. But, you know, we will see. But 50 cal? I mean, has a 50 calibre rifle ever been used in a crime? Not in the UK. Anywhere? I don't know. I honestly don't know. If they have, it's very rare, because you're talking about a rifle that can cost £10,000. Even in America, it'll cost you like $10,000 for that sort of rifle. And then the cartridges cost like, what, £7 a shot? Unless you reload, and then it might be as cheap as £4 a shot. And it's a calibre that's designed for shooting at vehicles. It's not designed for shooting at people. It's an anti-material device. If you're talking about 50 BMG, which I assume is what they're talking about, and you know, it's not even particularly accurate. accurate. I mean, if somebody wanted to commit a mass shooting, there's lots of things, that calibers they could use that would be more appropriate to do that, because you don't need a 50 cal if you're going to shoot someone, do you? And, you know, you're not exactly going to be shooting lots and lots and lots of them, and you don't need to shoot somebody from a mile away. And if you did want to shoot someone from a mile away, you wouldn't use a 50 cal because they're not very accurate, because they're designed for shooting at vehicles. You would use something like a 338 Lampour. That's why the 50 BMG isn't actually a sniper round. It's a round designed for shooting the engines out of vehicles, because it's a big target. You know, I mean, sure, people do. You hear stories of people, Afghanistan soldiers and stuff, using them as to shoot people with or whatever, but it's not designed for that. So I really don't understand where the government's coming from, to be honest. I mean, obviously it's a reaction to the shooting in Vegas, and it really puts things in perspective, doesn't it, really? In America, they just banned slide fire stocks, or try and ban slide fire stocks, although I know you guys over in the States are really worried about the bill that's going through to do with that, because it's so ambiguous the way it's been worded. But, you know, yeah, that's what you get. We get 50 cals banned. It's like, what the hell? You know? But then, of course, rapid fire rifles, as I said. Now, a lot of people think that that probably means rifles like the lever release Southern Gun Company rifles. And if you look on gun marks, you'll see that an example of that. But essentially, you've got a rifle, AR-15, in usually, you see them generally around in 45 ACP, but they do them in 223 now, and I guess probably other calibers by now as well. But basically, you pull the trigger, the bolt goes back, holds back, and then by your thumb, where the safety would normally be, you've got a lever, you press that, bolt goes forward, pull the trigger again, bolt holds back, lever down, pull the trigger again, and so on and so on. Now, that's that, and yeah, you can reach almost semi-automatic speeds, but not really. And then you've got the Mars rifles, which is exactly the same principle, but when the bolt holds back, instead of pressing a lever, you pull the trigger again, and so every other trigger pull, the rifle fires. Again, as shown on Gunmart in the past. I'll overlay some footage of that so you can see what I mean, especially our American viewers, because you may be interested in that. But it's a funny one, isn't it? Because those things are kind of similar to what's going on in America. But in America, you've essentially got a slide fire stock, which is an aid to semi-automatic fire to make it more rapid, and then we've got something that's an aid to manual fire to make it more rapid. And so they want to ban that. But again, like with the 50 caliber rifles, these things are horrendously expensive. This isn't like this is something that's like all over the place. You know, your average person who's a bit of a nutter, who's going to start, you know, who's going to do something like that, isn't likely to get hold of that sort of rifle. And frankly, if they wanted to shoot loads of people, there's so many ways that they could do it, and they could use a bomb or whatever else anyway. So it's, yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. But again, it's not addressing the cause of the problem, because especially in the UK, with the tough licensing measures we have, something like what happened in Vegas is highly unlikely to ever happen here. What's more likely to happen is somebody involved in terrorism is going to commit some sort of attack, in which case, yeah, I mean, whatever, they'll just get an illegal firearm or whatever. So it's all a bit of a mess, isn't it, really? But of course, I'm speculating, because I don't know what's going to happen, and neither do you, and this is just a consultation, as is at the moment. But be ready. I know Firearms UK mentioned that Amber Rudd herself, in her constituency, she only won in her seat in the last election by a very, very small margin. And if you actually look at the number of firearms owners in that constituency, if they all decided not to vote for her, they could take a seat off her. So be prepared. You know, if you need to start writing to your MPs, but don't kind of go mad yet, because we do need to see what this consultation comes up with, because it may not be as bad as we think. Especially, if we have Basque involved and stuff, where they'll say the things I'm saying. I mean, like, 50 cals, what are you going on about? Lever release, these really niche, really expensive rifles. This isn't a problem in the UK. You need to worry about things like terrorism. Again, stop putting a plaster on something and look at the problem. Why have we got a problem with terrorism? Well, we're importing too many migrants, and we're not addressing problems with Islamic extremism. That's really what it comes down to. That's the real threat to the people of the UK. But really, like I said, the means that they do it, it's just irrelevant. You just start an arms race. That's all that happens. Even if you're a terrorist and you're going to do something really bad, you can't get hold of a gun, although, like I said, banning things isn't going to stop them anyway. But even if they can't get hold of it, well, they'll just get a lorry or something and drive into people like they did in Nice in France. I mean, that killed as many people as they did in Vegas. It just doesn't make any difference. And in terms of somebody suddenly snapping, well, you look at the guy in Vegas. How much preparation had to go into that happening. If you're somebody who just suddenly snaps, you could just be driving your car, couldn't you, down the road, and then just suddenly decide to veer off and start running people over. You could just make that decision in a second and go and do something like that. So this is just ridiculous. Talking about taking freedoms away from people just to address something that you're not willing to actually address. But, this is just like a broken record, isn't it? This happens over and over and over again. Sometimes I really start to lose faith in the human race. I really do, because nobody cares, nobody listens, nobody wants to actually deal with the causes of problems. Instead, all they want is a sort of somebody to virtue signal with something that they can grab onto to make them feel that they're sated in someone being punished for what's happened. I mean, we see the same thing in the States. People just want to feel like we can punish gun owners, blame gun owners for this evil man who's killed these people, and it's like, well, what the hell is that going to achieve? It's just ridiculous. Try and actually understand the motivations behind the reasons someone behaves like that. Just do something about that. Anyway, that's me. I haven't got much more else to say really on the subject, but a few people have asked me to make this video, so yeah, there we are. Just keep your eyes open and wait and see what happens.